After Adam, there can at any given time be an absence of answers to the questions suggested in the last chapter, because economic thought has not developed to the requisite level of sophistication, or there can be an absence of answer because the questions themselves have not yet arisen. With distinguished exceptions, most historians of economic thought have attributed the failure to provide answers to the first default. More is to be attributed to the second. In the time of the Greek city-states and the Athenian Empire, and later in the age of Rome, many, if not most, of the problems mentioned did not in fact exist. The basic industry of both Greece and Rome was agriculture. The producing unit was the household, the labor force was the slave. The intellectual, political, cultural, and a substantial measure of the residential life centered on the cities, and it is of these Sparta, Corinth, Athens, and most notably Rome that the history is written. But the ancient city, large or, as was the common case, very small, Rome and a few Italian cities except, were not economic centers, as that term is now understood. There were market and craftsmen, most of the latter slaves. There was, however, little industrial activity of a kind that would now be recognized as such. The friends David Hume could not remember a passage in any ancient author where the growth of a city is ascribed to the establishment of a manufacture. Quote in M.I. Finley, The Ancient Economy, Berkeley and Los Angeles, UC Press, 1973, page 22. The use or consumption of goods, primitive shelter, elementary nutrient, perhaps some drink, some cloth, little else, was infinitesimal for all but a minute governing minority. For this minority, the greatest consumption was in service. Again, the slaves, ancient Greece and Rome were not far from controversial point, consumer goods economics. It is somewhat unclear how the inhabitants of the Greek and Italian cities, including Rome, paid for the foodstuffs and why they drew from the countryside. Most of the material goods were probably bought with the rent and other revenues or exactions that accrue to absentee landowners who live in the cities and that were now recycled to pay for the product of the farms and vineyards. Perhaps also in some cases the city dwellers were simply paid in kind, or their revenue may have come in the form of taxes, which could be used in turn to pay for the produce, and the silver mines provide revenue to Athens as military tribute did to Rome. It is certain that grain and other products came in volume to the ports of the Piraeus and Austria, but it has never been quite so clear what those ports sent out in return. On this, see Finley, The Ancient Economy, page 123 to 149. A careful and persuasive authority on these matters. Finley was a professor of ancient history at the University of Cambridge from 1970 to 1979. Discussion of the economic question of this era is principally to be found in the writing of Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC, and there is not a rich yield. No one can read his works without secretly suspecting a certain measure of eloquent incoherence on economics, secretly, because the other being Aristotle, no one can wisely suggest such a thing. But more to the point, very few of the questions with which economics later become concerned apply to the society of which Aristotle spoke, those problems with which he was occupied, to which indeed he was impelled, has a notably ethical intonation. In the words of Alexander Gray, as distinguished student of the history of economic idea, economics in ancient Greece was not merely the attendant and the handmaiden of ethics, as perhaps she should always be. She was crushed and brought out by her more prosperous and pampered sister, and later explorers in search of the origin of economic theory.
ขณะนี้เหลือเวลาอีก10 นาทีจะหมดรอบการใช้บริการพื้นที่รอบบ่ายขอความกรุณาออกจากพื้นที่ภายในเวลา17 นาฬิกาทางนี้กรุณาตรวจสอบทรัพย์สินของท่าน